From Liberation Hall comes on Blu-ray a new edition of the 1971 concert documentary Soul to Soul. This is 93 minutes. Now the IMDb list said is 96 minutes, and I'll get to why this is actually shorter than the version people saw in theaters, but this is the version people have been seeing since it was released on DVD a decade or so ago. This is directed by Denis, who looms large in his own legend for me because he is the director of Elvis, That's the Way It Is, which is the film whose footage was the basis of the new Baz Luhrmann epic documentary. And Elvis, That's the Way It Is was 1971 or 70. This is 1971. This is the film he made right after Elvis, That's the Way It Is. And then he would go on to direct Invasion of the B-Girls. So there you go. It features Ike and Tina Turner, Wilson Pickett, Santana, Les McCann, and Eddie Harris, the Staple Singers, and the voices of East Harlem. It is presented in 4:3. It looks really good and sounds really good. They also have released a new CD soundtrack, and I think maybe an LP soundtrack for this as well. It is presented in 2.0 stereo audio. It has new video-generated titles, because I think they went back to the original elements, which means the quality is better of the image you see under the titles, but the titles do look like they're new. They don't look like they're vintage 1971. And this is really cool. This is a cool film. I had heard of this for a long time, so I was really excited when this release was coming out. I will recite to you from just off screen the opening titles, this opening block of text on the film, which kind of explains what this is. In March 1971, several dozen African-American musicians traveled from New York City to Ghana. Their primary purpose was to perform alongside African musicians in a 14-hour concert called Soul to Soul. This documentary captures the story of Black American souls connecting with Black West African souls through the power of music. So what you get is footage of the American artists flying over to Ghana from the US and talking about their excitement of going, back to the motherland, back to Africa, which was a bit of a movement at the time for African Americans to go back and see where their people came from and connect with, with their familial origins were. So there are people talking about that and excited about doing the show. And then you get a little bit of them in villages and meeting local dignitaries and talking about the difference of being a person in Ghana or in New York City. And then you get the concert. Or you get highlights of the concert. It was a 14-hour concert. So this is one of those things where I wish, like Woodstock or Monterey Pop, that maybe more of this concert would surface one day and we might be able to get even more of these performances, because I think you get about 2 songs from each performer in this, and they're really good. Like, these people, some of them are at the top of their game. I believe Santana later said that they thought that performance in Soul to Soul was like the best that was ever captured of them on film, even more so than Woodstock. So you get really good performances from these people. You get some performances from the Ghana musicians, and you will get to watch the crowd just like losing their minds over how joyous this experience is. And it cuts back and forth to some of these American artists again in Ghana, talking to people and experiencing various aspects of their culture. So it's really interesting in terms of seeing what culture in Ghana was like in 71. And then it's Ike and Tina Turner on stage in 1971. It's Wilson Pickett driving the audience out of their minds in 1971. So if you're a fan of soul music, this is a really good thing to see and probably have. And it's very cool that the soundtracks are coming out in conjunction with this. So let's see. The reason that it's a little bit shorter, originally Roberta Flack, because I looked at IMDb and I looked at the poster. I'm like, how did they originally advertise this? And Roberta Flack's name was on there. And I'm like, she wasn't listed on any of the packaging here. Apparently at some point between the original 1971 release and the 2014 or so DVD release, Roberta Flack decided she didn't want to be part of this anymore. So all of the shots of her and all of the performances of hers are taken out. So that's that 3-minute or so discrepancy between the original theatrical release and what we've had on video. The extras are voluminous. I think these are pretty much all carried over, more or less all carried over from the DVD release. You get a commentary by Mavis Staples from the Staple Singers, which is really good. You get a commentary by Les McCann and Kevin Griffin from the Voices of East Harlem, which is really good. And Les McCann is really funny. He's ragging on some of the people on camera, and Kevin Griffin is laughing so hard. It's very entertaining to listen to. And you get Kevin McCann, who was a kid at the time of this concert, now is an adult and a pastor wherever he's located, probably still Harlem. And it's really interesting to hear his perspective of what he thought of that all as a kid and what it all means to him now looking back decades later. You get a commentary by producer Tom Mosk with reissue producer David Peck of Reelin' in the Years Productions, and they talk about how the movie got made and how the reissue got made and how this film was sort of resurrected for DVD. You get a commentary with Ike Turner, Michael Shreve from Santana, and then Obo Andy from, he was a Ghanaian drummer, Kevin Griffin from the Voices of East Harlem, and Les McCann again. That's really interesting, where they talk about their experiences and the show and their pretty clear still memories of that whole experience. You get a 2025 trailer, so it's like a new trailer for this release. It's 2.5 minutes. And then you get a full outtake performance by Ike and Tina Turner doing I've Been Loving You Too Long. It's 6 minutes, and it is rather incendiary. It is rather erotically charged, shall we say. So this is a really good set. Let me show you what the package looks like. So you get the cover there, and we crack it open, and nothing too fancy inside, but it comes with this thick booklet that is a lot of words and images written, and it says right here, it was... following essay was written in 2004, so that's when the DVD came out, so 22 years ago as I record this. Written in 2004 by Rob Bowman to accompany the initial release of Soul to Soul on DVD. Since that time, sadly, a number of people that I interviewed in or performed at the festival, including Les McCann, Ike Turner, Wilson Pickett, Tom Mosk, and Yvonne and Cleophas Staples have passed away. These notes are dedicated to them, so it's an in-depth account of that whole experience. So this is a really good set. Again, if you've never heard of this, it's worth checking out. If you love the artists in this or this kind of music, or are just fascinated by the whole people going back to their roots, it's really good. So available now from Liberation Hall on Blu-ray and LP and CD and maybe even DVD is Soul to Soul.